Loneliness, abandonment, fear, betrayal, agony. All of these very human emotions and feelings are felt by our Lord in his passion. Passion itself being a very interesting word, which denotes not only suffering, but at the same time another emotion, intense, unrelenting, powerful love. Betrayed by one of the 12 and abandoned by all but one, rejected by the whole world that he was sent to save. Christ is literally the most heartbroken person the world has ever known. And that being said, all of us can to some extent relate, empathize in our own passions, as we too suffer many of the same hurts and pains in our lives. But what do we do with that? Do we get angry and lash out like Peter, unsheathing our sword and slicing off the servant's ear? Do we give up and run away like the 12, abandoning Christ, who they've been following devotedly for 3 years? Or are we like Peter, just flat out deny it? Deny the reality staring us in the face? What do we do? I think we heard in the silence of the garden last night, for those especially who stayed and prayed after the Mass of the Lord's Supper, that as Christ goes into the garden to pray and asks his disciples to pray with him, that in his agony, all these emotions, all these very real human feelings are rising up to the surface and literally pouring out of him as blood drips out of his pores. And Christ's response is not anger, is not fear, is not isolation or denial, but is that of trust. Not my will, but yours be done. So what is it that we must do when we too encounter our passions in our lives? We have to love like we've never loved before. And I don't say this glibly, because you know what? To be very blunt, to be very frank, this isn't easy. In fact, it's quite difficult. I mean, look at this beautiful mural of Christ being taken down from the cross. I grew up as a young boy staring at this mural. This is what love gets you. Now, I mean, not exactly, but this is what the world and the devil will tell you what love will get you. If you give yourself completely, you will be betrayed. You will be mocked. You will be abandoned. You will be left alone to die. So don't love. Hoard it. Be selfish. Keep it all to yourself. Because if you do, this will be the result. But our faith, our God, tells us that love's perseverance goes beyond the cross and the grave. That indeed, this is what love will get you. But it is impossible for us today here to meditate on the mystery of Good Friday and the passion of the Christ if we are not willing to see love's fulfillment in the glory of the resurrection. The cross, my friends, is not the end. It is the beginning. In our lives, the pain, our very own passions, it's the beginning, which, if authentic and steadfast, are ardently rooted in love, culminating in love fulfilled, love realized, which is new life. The apostles, like so many of us, are scared of the cross. Heck, today, so many so-called Christians don't even have the image of the crucifix displayed because they're afraid of it. They refer to him as the defeated Lord. And I know in my own life, and I'm sure many of us can relate, the cross that we're called to bear is something we want to avoid as well. Something that's much easier to run away from or to deny. But obsessing on the cross itself is to miss the point of the cross altogether. Missing its purpose. The cross is necessary. There is no Easter without Christ's death. This is why Jesus commands us, take up your cross and follow me. Not because he desires our torture and our pain. Not because he desires every day of our life to be in misery. In fact, this whole notion that we hear many times presented in the face of difficulty to just offer it up, or this is your cross, I think has been taken to extremes in some circles of our church. Christ does not ask us to be miserable, to carry our pain, our hurts, our misery, our sadness, to be unhappy, to be joyless, to be unfulfilled, out of some sense of false piety and just to accept it. That's called depression. And if you want to know that this is true, look at the lives of the saints. The common theme through all of them is joy. And yeah, they had crosses. Don't just look at the end of the story. Look at their whole story. Their crosses were ridicule, misunderstanding, disease, even torture and martyrdom. But always joy. Even Jesus himself on the cross thanks his Father, forgives his persecutors. The suffering we endure is temporary. Even in this life, we don't have to endure in misery, whatever it is that is presented to us, until the day we die. If we allow the joy of God's love to fill our hearts, then no matter what it is, the misery, the sadness, the anguish will fall away. But like I said, I'm the first to admit this is difficult. This is hard. What we are undergoing may seem like a scourging or crucifixion in our own lives. It might not make any sense and may be so mentally painful that we might rather wish that we were being physically tortured. But the key to all of this that we must remember and put into perspective, lest we do fall into despair or to depression or some form of mental illness, is that this is only the beginning. The cross is not the end. If it were, well, we might as well just all pack it up and go home right now and do whatever we fancy. Because we were called for more. We were created for more. We are capable for more. I know this intimately in my own life. And you know, sometimes we have to come to realize this ourselves, and we can't do it ourselves. Think of Christ and Simon on the way to Golgotha. Simon helping Christ to carry his cross. Sometimes we need help to figure it out. To ask or beg people to help you to carry your cross. And I think that it's crucially important to remember that no matter how heavy or painful, there's always somebody there to help. that we are never without hope. Because the cross, my friends, is not the end. It is the beginning. Do not be afraid of it. Embrace it. Be brave. Be strong. Get help where you need it. And know that on the other side of this passion is something greater than you can even imagine. Today, Good Friday, we commemorate Christ's cross, his passion, his agony, all for our glory. And so I implore you to bring your cross to his when you come up to venerate the cross. Bring your fear, your pain, your loneliness, your grief, your betrayal. Bring your cross, which is your life, yourself, and nail it to his cross. He's already extended the invitation. It's now our turn to respond. And when you do, I promise you that this is not the end, but only the beginning. The beginning of something we might have never been able to predict, and will be so amazing in its splendor. We will marvel in awe for the rest of our eternal lives at the gifts of God's bounty that he is about to pour forth upon us. But we have to take that first step. Our first station in our passion, in our way of the cross, to find God's glory and his goodness that lies ahead for each and every one of us.